And you're watching Sporting Icons.
So Daniel Dubois had the harsh realities of boxing, especially heavyweight boxing, full front and centre put on him last night at the hands of Joe Joyce. Now, him getting a damaged eye so he couldn't see, him taking a knee, essentially he quit. Okay, that's going to haunt him for a long, long time. Now, I know many boxers are out there be like, nobody should ever quit. It's much better to go out on your shield and all that kind of stuff, and that's cool. And many of us who watch boxing will go, what, you quit? What done? But the reality is, he's a 23-year-old man. Only just turned 23 years old. He hasn't fully matured yet. And I know those of you who are around that kind of age, you'll totally disagree with me on that one. But in time, you'll see. He's very inexperienced in the professional game. Now, there's a few things to talk about, okay? Now, first and foremost, yes, okay, he did quit, and this is going to haunt him for quite some time. Not only has he taken his first loss, but how he took it is going to bother him. For sure, because he's a warrior. And he does deserve huge credit for getting in the ring with Joe Joyce to start with. Joe Joyce deserves massive credit for how he handled Daniel Dubois. That's how you handle a Daniel Dubois. I know people want to talk about, well, maybe Dubois was too bulky, too heavy, all that kind of stuff. These are little things that he needs to work on for sure. But for me, the mental side is the most important thing. Every time he goes to a press conference now, doesn't matter, in 20 fights time, he could be knocking out opponents and going the distance and going through deep waters and doing very well. People will still mention, once a quitter, always a quitter. That's what people do. And here in the UK, we're very guilty of it, which is we see somebody like a Daniel Dubois, much like we did with Anthony Joshua. Is he the chosen one? Is he going to put the heavyweight division down on lockdown? Is he the one? Is he Neo from the Matrix? Is he the one? The new messiah for British heavyweight boxing? People want to see it now. Too impatient. Oh, here he is. He's taking on a Dan Fujimoto. Oh, here he is. He's taking on a Schneider. Here he is taking on this guy. People are too impatient. You need to build these fighters, especially when they're young. Yes, he had a fair bit of amateur experience. He did have 75 fights, which is much more than Joshua had, certainly much more than Daniel White had, much more than Tyson Fury had, but not at senior level. Okay? He never went to the Olympics. He never had that background. Arguably, Frank Warren pulled him out of the amateur system way too soon because he needed a guy to challenge Joshua. Daniel Dubois was that guy. And I know for quite some time, I've been seeing many Daniel Dubois fans. And listen, I'm a Daniel Dubois fan too. But I could see the realities of it. His progress was absolutely fine. I had no problems with it. But a lot of people didn't. When names were mentioned about him fighting Anthony Joshua or a Dillian White or maybe a Tyson Fury, a lot of people are like, yeah, he'll definitely knock out Anthony Joshua. Dillian White, man, he's trash. Daniel Dubois would walk through him. I was saying to you, hold your horses here. Hold your horses. No, he wouldn't. He would not at this stage. Daniel Dubois needed saving from himself. Did he buy into his own hype for the power and all that kind of thing? Maybe. And by the way, I know this for a fact, his sparring partners were not very good for the build-up for this fight. I know this for a fact. Whereas Joe Joyce, he was sparring the likes of Martin Bacoli, Anthony Joshua. Daniel Dubois wasn't. He was icing opponents. He was knocking them out. They couldn't get enough sparring partners in. I know this for a fact. That's not good when you're going in there with a Joe Joyce who could take you the distance. It's not good when you look back on it and Daniel Dubois from round number 3 was putting in a huge flurry of punches and was blowing. He was physically, visibly gassing. You could see that. Of course, he could recover quite quickly. Of course he could. He's 23 years old. But you could see that he was. That's not good. And a lot of it is down to the preparation. What's not good is when you've got your team in the corner berating you, effing and blinding at you, rather than encouraging you. Yes, your eye, you've got impaired vision at the minute. It probably feels worse than what it is. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You've got this fight under control. Do this, do that. Rather than go, F in this and don't you dare do that and blah, blah, blah. That's not good for a guy who is visibly distressed in the corner, visibly panicking, didn't know what to do, and you've got your team shouting at you like it's a damn army. Don't get me wrong, I don't know Daniel Dubois on a personal level. Maybe that's how he responds. Maybe that's what he responds to in the gym. I don't know. For some fighters, that's what you need. But he's 23 years old. What you don't do is panic him when he's already visibly distressed. As a coach, as a trainer, of course, you need to have your tactics right. But you also need to have a little bit of psychology about you as well. How to talk to your fighter. How to encourage them. The fact that he couldn't parry a jab. This is 101 boxing. Couldn't parry a jab. Couldn't block the jab. Couldn't slip it. That's worrying. That's very, very worrying. Is it a case of mismanaged? To a point. By the way, I'm not suggesting that he gets rid of any of his team. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, for me, he needs to bring somebody in who is not only business-minded, but knows the harsh realities of boxing because he's been around it. Somebody like a Dean White, he could manage Daniel Dubois. Other people as well, of course. And I said this to Dean White earlier on, by the way. But I think that Daniel Dubois, there is a lot to work on. A lot to work on. Is he too heavy? Hey, is what it is. Only he knows. I'll probably say yes. If you're breathing heavy after 3 rounds, this will tell me that your conditioning ain't the best. And it's not like huge shots were coming through. They were just jab. And the reason why his eye swelled up is because he couldn't stop it. 9 out of the 10 jabs were landing on him. It shouldn't be that way. You should be blocking or slipping 9 out of 10 jabs. Don't get me wrong, you can't ever block all shots. It's, you know, if you go swimming, you're going to get wet. This is boxing. This is a hurt game. But him quitting, he's 23 years old. 23. Only just turned 23. And he got in there with somebody like a Joe Joyce. Deserves a lot of credit, and I hope people do still support him. Yes, he's taken a major blip. It's one thing to lose to Joe Joyce. It's another thing how he lost to Joe Joyce, by taking the knee. That's not good, and hopefully he's mentally strong enough to do that. I don't agree with Frank Warren afterwards saying, hey, well, maybe it's different if we have a crowd. Maybe we can get a rematch on, all that kind of... No, Frank, please. Guide him correctly. Guide him how you was guiding him. Don't do like what Frank Bruno done. By the way, I'm not comparing to Frank Bruno. And I know I did this once before and people misunderstood me. But my point was, you don't fight the level of opposition that Dan Dubois has been, and like Frank Bruno did. And then you make a monumental jump, a leap. Because a lot of the times you're going to fall short. And that's what happened with Dan Dubois. This is what happened with Deontay Wilder, fighting absolute trash cans. Then he fought Tyson Fury. The gap was too big. There's no bridging of the gap. Dan Dubois needs the bridging. He needs to be taking on the bridging like a Derek Chisora, for example. He needs those kind of guys. All the talk about him fighting Dillian White, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, and all these other kind of cats, that was absolute pipeline dreams. Him fighting Alexander Usyk, and Frank Warren would be quite comfortable with him taking out Usyk, was madness. Absolutely madness. You can fill these boxers' heads with so much nonsense. You really can. But anyway, him quitting, it is what it is. Kell Brook did it. Okay. And that follows Kell Brook, doesn't it? Now it's going to follow Daniel Dubois, and he's going to have to be mentally tough to get over this. He really is. But his team, in my opinion, need to have a harsh look at themselves as to how they handled Daniel Dubois on fight night, in the corner, in the sparring, in the training, all that kind of stuff. They need to look at themselves. They won't. They'll probably blame Daniel Dubois. Maybe he didn't do this or he didn't do that and yada yada. No, you need to look at yourselves. You really do. He's a young man. And right now, he's like a sponge. Everything that you teach him, he will do. He will soak it up. When you belittle him in the corner, it's only going to hurt his confidence. And that's why I think he quit. To be honest with you, I think he quit because he was in visible pain. You could see that his eye was in a lot of pain and he weren't getting any encouragement in the corner. His only way out to stop the pain was to have the fight ended. He didn't want to get knocked out. He didn't know how the fight was going. He threw his best shots, and those that did land on Joyce was still coming forward. There's nothing he could do about it. He was physically distressed. His only way out of that fight was to go, right, I've had enough. Because he didn't want to get any more punishment during the fight, and he didn't want to go back to the corner because they were going to start shouting at him again. What do? what do you do? For me, I don't blame Daniel Dubois for quitting. And I know people say, but he's a warrior. Yeah, that's cool. When he's matured enough, we can judge him that way. But right now, he's 23 years old. I think that people need to give him a little bit more of a break. I understand what it is that people are saying. Of course I do. But the reality is 23 years old. That's nothing. Absolutely nothing. And him just getting in there with Joe Joyce deserves credit. Joe Joyce deserves massive credit for what it is that he done, by the way. Anyway, drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all in the next video.